So it's giving us a bit of context to start thinking about where recommendations could go and how that we can make sure they're well targeted so that they are able to make a difference locally. And just again, to get us sort of thinking about the types of recommendations we're going to be looking at developing over the next meetings we're together. We've also got Patrick Devine Wright here, who's chair of the Net Zero Task Force and been involved obviously in, the development of the plan, the interim plan so far. And he's going to talk about some of the principles that are embedded already, principles for implementation that are embedded into the plan already, and that we may want to be considering as we're developing our own recommendations. So over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Caleb. I'm just going to try and get my slides shared. Can you tell me if you can see them okay?
Not yet.
We're just seeing a blank screen.
Okay, let me try that again then.
It worked in the practice, people. It did.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, we're getting there now.
My IT skills being found out once again. Okay, how does that look?
Good.
Right, okay. Right, thanks, Kayla, for the introduction. Yes, I'm kind of here in this process in two guises. I'm the chair of the Net Zero Task Force, and so have been involved in developing the carbon plan over the last 2 years. But also as an academic, as a professor at the University of Exeter, I'm involved in the research that's taking place alongside the Citizens Assembly. So some of you may already have completed a survey, and I'm involved in that. But I'm here to speak to you right now about the principles behind the Devon Carbon Plan that have been guiding our thinking around it up to now, and which could offer you some ideas about principles you'd like to take forward in thinking about the recommendations coming from the Citizens Assembly. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about these. So as I mentioned, the carbon plan has already been begun, and a set of principles have already been developed to guide the development of actions. These draw on key messages heard from the public in the call for evidence and the thematic hearings with experts that have taken place already. The principles should be used when putting the plan into action, and we would like you, as the Assembly members, to consider these principles when developing your recommendations. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes simply listing these now. There are about 17 of them, so there's no need for you to kind of try and memorize them or anything like that. These are for discussion immediately after I present them to you. So the first one to set out is the principle that achieving net zero emissions is not an optional goal. It is considered to be essential. Secondly, the role of the plan is to map out all of the changes needed, even if some of them are not possible at this moment in time. So it's distinctly future-oriented, and the carbon plan maps out where we will be going. The plan needs to reflect the specific qualities and characteristics of Devon in planning for net zero. This includes the fact that Devon is a place that is much more rural than most of England. It's relatively remote geographically and has a significant proportion of upland and coastal environments. Number 4, although this is a plan for Devon, it also seeks common cause with other areas of the country that are facing similar challenges to reaching net zero emissions, and will seek to work with them to make finding the right solutions more efficient and more effective. So although the focus is on Devon, it's not like there's a wall around Devon and we're ignoring anything happening outside. It very much also seeks common cause with these other areas that may be facing similar challenges. All the policies and actions involved in the carbon plan must deliver carbon reductions across their entire life cycle, from beginning to end, from cradle to grave. We must deliver and account for multiple benefits for health, for well-being, and for resilience of communities and for nature. The term emergency should have due consideration given to it. Any activities incompatible with net zero emissions by 2050 at the latest must be reconsidered. The implementation of the plan must be democratic. It must involve communities, so it is not done to people, but it's done by and with people and communities across Devon. A just transition is required to ensure that vulnerable and low-income segments of society and rural communities are not disadvantaged through the Carbon Plan. The differing impacts of climate change on different groups, depending on ability, disability, minorities, gender, etc., all of these must be addressed in thinking about the Carbon Plan and its implementation. And actions to decarbonise Devon must not be at the expense of other communities or ecology outside of Devon globally. Significant behavioural change must be recognised as a necessity involved in reaching net zero emissions. We must reframe how we envisage our local economy to move beyond using growth as the only measure of success. The plan must recognise the varying geography of the county, including the importance of linkage and of networks connecting different places and different communities. Spatial planning has a clear role to reorganise society towards net zero living, and that involves considering what new developments are consented and where those new developments should go. Resources, energy, and mobility should all be considered in a hierarchy. Firstly, to consider avoiding or reducing any activities in these domains. Secondly, to improve efficiency. And thirdly, to use renewable and low carbon energy and resources. And clearly that means avoiding use of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. We must be innovative and dynamic in our pursuit of net zero Devon, sometimes leading and steering policy and action that might be ahead or in front of national initiatives or what are currently national policies. And just to finish, final 2 points, we must collaborate to make use of a range of financing opportunities. For example, to find financially viable, self-sustaining solutions and work with the private sector to develop these. Work with national government to develop public sector support, and to look to communities sometimes to invest in new projects and infrastructures. And finally, the implementation of the plan will be monitored regularly. It's not simply written and forgotten about, but any of the actions will be monitored over time, and reviews will be triggered if carbon emissions are not reducing at the necessary pace that is expected and required. Okay, that's all of the principles that have been guiding the Carbon Plan to date. So that's me done. Thank you very much.